All right, so we're 1 minute past the hour, and I'll slowly start up this G Stakeholder Forum. So welcome everyone. My name is Jacob Nielsen. I'm the chair of G and in my day job I work for Vattenfall as Director of Health and Safety for wind. I can see that we're about 17 to 20 people on the call. If I could ask you, just those of you who want to switch on the camera just once, so we can just get a visual for those of you who want to switch on the camera.
Yes, I will allow everybody on that. Sorry,
Yeah, very good. I think in the beginning of the meeting, it's nice to get a few faces on the screen, and then afterwards we can switch them off again. So, oh, very good, excellent. So I see we have a few more faces on the screen. Thank you for that. Excellent. It's doing these presentations sometimes feels like just speaking into the screen. So getting your faces on the screen is making a big difference. Thank you very much. Excellent. And then, Karen, if you go to the housekeeping slide, I think we're actually asking people to switch off the cameras again. But let's see. No, that's good. So yeah, just a bit of housekeeping. Make sure you're in a safe environment. I would like to let you know that we're recording this webinar. So just for your information. And for the Q&A session, if you could please leave your questions in the chat box. And also saying, who you are directing the question to. And then you're free to post questions throughout the session. And then Karen will moderate the chat and actually ask the question in the actual session. So very good. Thank you. And thanks for switching on your cameras. If you want to switch them back off, you're welcome to do that. But it was great to see you here on the call. Karen, if you go to the next one, please. Very good. So if you can move on the slides, Karen. There you go. So I briefly introduced myself. I would also like to briefly introduce G+. And before I dive into that, then a word about why health and safety is so important. I think in this call, most people are health and safety professionals, or of course, very closely related to the health and safety topic. So there's probably not a great need to go into a lot of details here, but I just wanted to also remind everyone why G+ actually started. And that was because we saw some very severe incidents in the industry, and the large developers felt the need to come together and join forces to exchange data on health and safety and exchange information, and then out of that improve the health and safety in the entire industry. So we do not see health and safety as a competition element, but we see ourselves shared in the industry, joined in the industry to make the industry more safe, and that should then be to the benefit of everyone, including, of course, the fantastic progress that we see in the industry in general. So if you go to the next one, Karen, here you see who are the members. We started out as G9, and then since then there's been some exchange in the industry. So that means that a couple of companies have changed, so changed their names or changed their constellation. And we fortunately also see newcomers into the G+. Actually, in the last board meeting, we just accepted 2 more members. So we will see Northland and BP also joining as full members. There have been associate members so far. So that means that we go from 10 up to 12 full members. And then you see all our associate members on the slide here. It's quite important for me to say that we're not actually an association that are looking to expand heavily in the number of members. What is important to us is that we have the main developers, that we represent the industry widely, and that we and not that we have like other associations. They're always on the lookout to be like 100, 200 members or something like that. That is not the intention here. The intention is very much from a non-profit point of view, that the main developers in the industry go together, share the data, and then again work for the improved health and safety in the industry. So Karen, if you can go to the next one, please. Then what you will see in the next one is who we are and what we do. So very simply, creating a safer and healthier global offshore wind industry. As I already highlighted, we're independent and we're not for profit, and we are global. We started out having discussions whether we were a little bit UK based or UK biased, and then the discussion moved into, are we a little bit European biased? And I think this year we can clearly see with the participation here in APAC, and when we had our meeting last week with US, and we have our global stakeholder day next week, excuse me, we can clearly see that we are having a global reach now with all the contacts we have in the different regions, both with members, but also with associate members, and indeed also with other stakeholders like the authorities in the different regions. So this is a very clear development that we see, that we're truly having a global reach now. We see that here in the slide that we work in 4 areas, and I'll jump into them in one of the next slides. So actually, let's go to that, Karen, if you go to the next one, because here you see in more detail what it is that we do. We're based on data, and I always say that it's good to have opinions. I appreciate opinions, but I really need to have data, and that is what we base G+ on. So what we do is every full member sign up to actually delivering data to G+. So we get all the health and safety data into one pool that represents a very large part of the entire industry. And that means that we can actually discuss from incident data, and we follow that, and it's quite unique that we have data from 2014 and onwards. So for this relatively young industry, we have a very strong set of data. What we do is that every year we publish our incident data report, and that is free for everyone to download. And you can then see not only the data, but also our interpretation of the data. Then based on the data, we do good practice guidelines. So out of the data, we can see what the major risks are in the industry, and then we produce a good practice guideline out of that. And of course, the good practice guidelines are done in combination with the experts from the members. So I usually say it's the collective brain power of the industry that we have represented. So these good practice guidelines are very good, they're very detailed, and they are always very good and very up to date. Then we also have our safety by design. If you can just give me a little bit extra time on this one, thanks, Karen. We have our Safe by Design workshop report, so recognizing that safety is not only what, health and safety is not only what happens on the construction sites and in the project, but realizing that health and safety starts very much with the design. And then indeed the fourth column is the toolbox tool that some of you might not be aware of, but this is actually our incident sharing database that is quite active, where it's open, that you can post incidents, and by that we can share them at a relatively quick pace. So if something happens, we can alert the entire industry. But of course, it also provides a look into the history where you can actually see what has happened. But we have a very nice video on that. So Karen, if you can run the video, please, on Toolbox. Thank you, Karen. And yeah, a very good insight into the toolbox tool that we have available. And as you could see, we share that with the wider energy industry. And so actually you can also get data from other industries as well. But of course you can filter on wind and on offshore wind. So before I hand over or end my presentation here, I just wanted to give you some insights into G Plus and how we operate. So this is the very simple structure that we have agreed on that ensures that we are very efficient and to the point. And bear in mind that most of the work done in G Plus is done by people who have a day job like myself, working with Vattenfall, and that means that again we have no commercial interest in anything here, and also that we are quite focused in getting things done and getting things out to the benefit of the industry, and there's no other agenda behind that. When I say most people, I also want to highlight the secretariat that we have that provides incredible help for us. and ensures the continuity in the G+ organization, and again helps us to be efficient and to get things done. So this overview tells you that we have a board of directors, so all the full members have a seat at the board, and you see everyone represented here with the company logos, the names, and the pictures. Currently, I'm chairing G+. I've been doing that for a little more than a year now, and my term ends by the end of this year. We have David Griffith from SSE as the vice chair, and then you see the other board members represented in this slide. Then we have the associate members, as were listed in the previous slides, and we invite them to our board meetings on a frequent basis to ensure that the board meetings are as open as possible, and that everyone who is interested can actually have an opportunity to join in. Then, as mentioned, the Energy Institute G+ Secretariat. So the Secretariat is hosted by the Energy Institute, but we have a number of people working for us, dedicated working for us. And then, as you see here, we have the focal groups, the US focal group, the Europe focal group, and the APAC focal group. And then we have just agreed on the structure that we can create chapters under the focal group. So we have Taiwan and Japan as chapters under the APAC focal group. So with that, basically I wanted you to now what I'll do is I'll finish my introduction here by saying G+ is stronger than ever. As mentioned before, we have grown, so we now have a global representation. One of the more strong things that we do is that we have very good contact to authorities in the different countries, regulators and authorities. So that means specifically in emerging markets and new markets that we can really assist both the industry and the authorities with the knowledge and the data that we have. And that is again to the benefit of the entire industry, so we can move faster, so we can progress the renewable industry to the benefit of everyone. We've seen, again, last week we had the US Stakeholder Day, this week we have APAC, and next week we have the face-to-face meeting taking place in Spain, where we have a global representation. We have a lot of people already signed up for that, and we see the interest is extremely high, and we have a lot of very significant people joining in there. So I think I can say again that G+ is stronger than ever. We're global, we're driving the purpose that we have, and I'm very proud to see also the development year over year. I can see that we're stronger than ever, and I'm very happy also to leave you in the very capable hands here of Kellyanne E, who will take you through the remainder of today's program. So with that, I'll finish my introduction. Thank you all for joining in. I'm looking very much forward to an exciting program here, and I'll hand it over to you, Kellyanne.
Thank you very much, Jakob. Thanks. So hi everyone, I am Kellyanne. I am the chair for the APAC focal group. I've been in the position for coming up to 6 months. So I also have a day job. So my day job is head of QHSE for the APAC region, and I'm also interim covering the design, risk and supply chain management department in Ørsted as well. I've been with Ørsted for 2.5 years. I have been in offshore wind for about 13 years, starting out in Europe and UK. And then I've now been in APAC, based in Taiwan for 6 years now. All right, next slide, please. So a bit about APAC. What have we done here? We started out in November 2019 in Taiwan. That was the main area of focus at the time. And then, as Jakob mentioned, we work a lot together in terms of sharing best practice, learning lessons, working with our stakeholders and also regulators to build up a good QHSE culture and also standards in offshore wind. We then, in September 2021, set up the chapter for Japan. And reason for that is so that we could actually have specific forums where we could talk about specific risks and things in each country. And more to come. We are very much looking to expand as the offshore wind industry expands in APAC. Currently looking at Korea, Australia, Vietnam as well. Here is our members. The member groups are very similar to our other international areas as well, all our international players. And here, we have some new members. We have Equus that just joined us and Vina Energy as well. Next slide, please. So what have we achieved to date in the time that we've been into APAC? Of course, most of our focus has been in Taiwan. That's where we started out with. But as you can see here, it is very much about working together, working with stakeholders to raise awareness of health and safety. Some key things here you can see in 2020, we ran like an offshore wind farm symposium with Taiwan OSHA. And then more recently, all the way up to 2022 in December, we ran an emergency response workshop with the Taiwan National Rescue Control Center as well. We have set up a new governance structure where we have the APAC forum that we meet once every 3 months to look at APAC-wide issues. And then, we are forming specific chapters we have specific chapters for Taiwan and Japan to focus on specific country-specific discussions. And I'm very pleased to announce, we have Jack, who is our new Taiwan lead from Koryo, and then Mori as well for Japan from SSE Pacifico. So a big congratulations to our chapter leads. And again, as Jakob mentioned, we all have our day jobs, and together when we put, efforts together and work together, that's how we can get really good outcomes. Next slide, please, Karen. Yeah, so that's what we've done. And then moving forward, what are we looking at? As I mentioned, we are structured where we've got once every 3 months APAC focal group, and then the bi-monthly, as in once every 2 months, we have the chapter meetings. We're looking at topics such as emergency response in terms of how we should be set up, but also how we collaborate and work with the authorities and what equipment and infrastructure is available to us in each country. We're also looking at, this is an APAC-wide one, we're looking at heat stress. We all face the same challenge, so let's come up with some good practice guidelines that we can share with each other. Safety training is also a topic that we are also looking into particularly in our new markets such as Japan, as to how we can make sure we have that set up. We engage with a whole range of stakeholders, contractors, other industry groups as well, strengthening our G+ brand and health and safety awareness in the countries. And as I mentioned, we also work with regulators and local partners. We have our good practice guidelines. So we're not starting from scratch, but it's promoting that, and where required, some localization to make sure that we are, working with within the local regulations as well. Yeah, so that's a lot. We're working on a lot. We're very passionate. What else are we here to do? Like we said, we're here to support offshore wind. we're here to address emerging issues together. So I wanted to, or Karen and I, we took the opportunity of this forum to send out a survey to hear from you, to hear your views on what we should be focusing on and what are your areas of concern. So next slide, please. So here's the results of the survey, and thank you all for completing the survey. Interested markets in APAC. Nice to see we are aligned. So of course, Taiwan and Japan, but very much increasingly South Korea is a really big area of focus, and Australia and Vietnam as well. The next slide, Karen. Yep. And then in terms of areas, so, you know, focus areas within the life cycle of a wind farm, you know, what's the area of interest is, of course, the most important is construction, but also development, operations, technology, and design are also areas that where QHSE can have a really big impact, albeit upfront, to have a good impact onto the offshore wind projects later into construction and O&M as well. Next slide. And so we also collated what are your major safety concerns in the region. And I tried to, or we tried to summarize it into here, the top 5 topics. Find it quite interesting that let's start with the top 3 in terms of mindset, competence, and contractor related. They're all very closely connected. You know, in terms of obviously competency, you know, sort of cultures and mindsets of the people that are working, and how do we make that training, for example, that's available. And I very much think some, you know, G+, when we are together, if we have one consistent voice towards the industry, you know, we have a better chance at influencing things. And likewise, you know, when we work together for guidances and, you know, maybe some training standards, I also think that that carries a lot of strength to give us a good outcome in terms of health and safety in the region. The other 2, emergency response related regulations and international standards, they're also very closely linked. You know, it's bringing what's known or what's worked through lots of lessons learned in years in offshore wind, international standards into countries. And we have to really blend it with making sure we comply with the local regulations and understanding the frameworks that we're working into as well. And as we mentioned earlier, you know, in Taiwan, you know, that's something that has been, we're working on a lot with having like workshops with the regulators on emergency response, for example. But yes, so here's the results from the survey. And then I think, you know, it would be really good to hear and have a panel discussion to really hear from some of our panelists as well that we've invited today. So really like to hear what do we do, what should we do to go forward in terms of health and safety in the region. And so we have today Boom Jong Zhang, who is a country manager for Equis. Welcome. Hi. We have Takamasa Kobayashi, who's the HSE manager for Vestas, dialing in from Japan.
Hi.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. And then Karen, I think.
Yes,
Yes.
we are supposed to have one more panelist, but due to some technical issues, she's not online right now. So if that's okay, I hope that you can carry on with Bunjun and with Kobayashi for now.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Karen. Okay, so I think we had a couple of questions for just to start out. So, you know, for Japan, maybe we can start there. So Takamasa, you know, as we can see, the top priority for, or the biggest safety concern, right, from the survey is a lack of mindset. So with construction and operations of offshore wind going on, you know, in Taiwan and Japan, I understand we've got the Noshiro projects that are going on at the moment. I'm really curious, perhaps you would like to share how you manage to keep the work and the project safe.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So maybe I will briefly introduce myself and the Akita Noshiro project so that everyone can understand the background. So hi, my name is Takamasa Kobayashi. So I took a role of project HSE manager of Akita Noshiro project, which is a very first commercial scale offshore wind farm project in Japan. And yeah, we started a full commercial operation from end of January this year. And Vesta scope in the project was supply and installation of 33 wind turbines in the nearshore areas. And the project team mainly consisted of Vesta supervisors coming from Europe and local subcontractors in Japan. So I'd like to share my experience with G+ members joining today's webinar. So back to the question. So generally speaking, I believe mindset of or safety awareness of Japanese local workers is not that low comparing with that of European workers. So most of Japanese workers follow the safety rules very seriously. But yeah, I understand there are some gaps between local workers and European supervisors in HSE management. So in my opinion, there are three factors that makes a difference. The first one is the difference between local legal requirements and international best practices. So for many Japanese companies, the most important things in safety management is the compliance with Japanese Industry Safety and Health Act, which is a key health and safety regulations in Japan. On the other hand, Vestas sets higher standards based on the international best practices. So for Japanese workers, so they sometimes do not fully agree to follow the additional rules while they are following Japanese safety rules. For example, some PPEs are not required in Japan, but Vestas rules require a full set of PPE. So people sometimes forget wearing such additional PPE as they are not used to wear the PPE. And the second factor is a lack of offshore wind work experience. So as you know, offshore industry is not big in Japan comparing with Europe. So in Akita Noshiro project, most of the local workers had no experience in offshore wind construction. And because they did the job for the first time, their main focus is to do the job accurately rather than paying attention to the safety. On the other hand, our European colleagues understand how to conduct the job, and they can afford paying attention to the safety, and they know what the risks are. And the last point is the cultural difference. So in Japan, most people hesitate to speak up in front of the group, especially in front of the client or a senior person. So our Japanese colleagues rarely speak up for safety during the meetings, or they rarely submit hazard observation card. I remember only 1 or 2 hazard card coming from Japanese colleagues. On the other hand, Vestas supervisors from Europe reports hazard almost every day, and they stop work when any safety concern is present. So I guess for European colleagues, it seems that Japanese colleagues are not actively engaged in the safety management. So to fill these gaps, the Akita Noshiro project did lots of things. So as for the competency Vestas required GWO basic safety trainings for all site technicians and supervisors to make sure everyone understands minimum HSE standards in the offshore wind industry. Also, before a construction work starts, Vestas provided about 2-week training session with local subcontractors to familiarize basic safety and technical matters for installation and commissioning of the turbines. And of course, during the construction, we had a toolbox meeting, job safety assessment, safety walk on a daily basis. And also, when some incident or near miss happens, we stop work and do a safety stand down. And to feel the cultural difference, Vestas had some team building events with subcontractors to know each other's and make atmosphere that everyone can speak up. But people don't speak up during the meeting, but they start talking about their safety concerns when we are doing a safety walk at site. So yeah, to wrap up, so what Vestas did during the project was not special. So we just did what we do in European project as much as possible. So it will take time for Japan to catch up with front runners, but I believe Japan can be a good safety performer in the future after having more experience. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for sharing. It's really nice to hear, on site, all of this coming to life, and it's good to hear the efforts. Thank you.
Welcome.
So that's the construction part of it. I had a question for the both of you actually. You mentioned you have you have the local teams and then you have some international talents coming in. How do you find the communication between the teams and how do we make sure that the workflow goes well?
Okay.
You want to go first, Takamasha?
Okay. I will make it short.
Sure.
Okay. So yeah, Akita Noshiro project. Yeah, as you mentioned, we have lots of people coming from Europe, and also we have lots of local workers. And our client is a Japanese companies, but they have lots of bilingual staffs. So Vestas didn't have any issues in communication with our employer because yeah, we speak in English, so there's no issue. But yeah, we had communication issue with local subcontractors because yeah, our colleague from Europe only speak English and our subcontractors speak only Japanese. So at the beginning, we had no dedicated interpreter on site. So we have many miscommunications and that makes the work inefficient. But subcontractor hired dedicated interpreter. So the communication become much more smooth. So I recommend hiring full-time interpreter from the beginning when European-based company works with local companies. And other than language difference, yeah, we have some different style of communication. So we need to understand the difference and also find the best way to have a good communication. Yeah, thank you.
Kelly, going back to your questions about the how we communicate, right, each other in the organization, within the organization. I think for the project that we are running under ACUS, is the a couple of other offshore wind projects here, but for AMA, I think we have like slightly over 40 project members are working, and they're all coming from other countries, and all experts coming from Europe and all other different countries, right? And the organization perspective, we have like interface, managers and coordinator. When we have like a weekly kind of catch-up meetings. So in the work perspective and task perspective, we have no problem to communicate. All very easy to communicate in English and things like that. But when we have like a relationship with the contractor, local contractors, right? We always have like a backup, engineers or technical persons who can speak both, like English or Koreans, can help each other. For example, like if we have like a vessel inspection cases, we're going down to the site at the port, and the people engage with that activity on the vessel as a crew. It's just purely Korean. They don't speak English at all, right? But they have to do the job. So we have. So in that case, I'm coming down with the people from the project and help them out, and making sure all that critical messages is cascading to everybody. So that's the challenging, but we are making sure everybody is aligned with that communication and collaboration method. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much for that sharing. So Bomjung, I had a question for you actually. So
Sure.
In Japan we talked about projects in construction. So I think in Korea I understand that we are in development mostly. So what about when
Korea.
we are in in Korea. So what about in development phase? Mostly when people think of health and safety, they think of in construction. However, actually in development, it is also quite complex with lots of survey vessels and things like that. So I'm really keen to hear from you,
Sure.
what challenges you have too.
Yeah. So I just by incident, right? I become like a HSE pioneer in this offshore wind, especially here in Korea. Before I was working for Total Energies, and then about a year I moved to another company here in ACUS, and then it was quite for me it's been about like 3 years in this industries, and I think the capacity wise, I think Korea is just like kind of baby kind of steps with that like 10 megawatts and 14 megawatts, that kind of capacity when it comes to, right? But the much smaller like size, we've been done it, right? But not with that kind of 110 megawatt and 14 megawatts. That kind of big size of the project is quite first time for every developers. So as I know, there are about 12 major developers from other countries, and most of the developers, they are in their development phase in the life cycle of the offshore wind, and a couple of developers, they are like faster than others, and one of them they open their site office in the fabrication yard, which is fabricating jackets and piles and everything. So since we have like a big shipyards here and there in Korea in the southern part of it, right? So they are really good at making all that heavy fabricating structures and jackets and everything. So that's couple of developers are facing in their fabrication phase, I would say, but it's definitely not in the construction phase, which is T&I, transportation installation, will be followed up later. But for ACUS, actually, we are in the development phase. But as everyone knows, in development phase, you have lots of other activities like Kelly just mentioned, like site investigations, right? Geophysics, geotech surveys, and EIAs, and the installation of the even floating lighters and fixed lighters. That is all marine operation. Of course, when you compare it to construction phase, the size of it very small, I will say, but the risk exposed to people or workers or crews in the marine operation, I think it will be same, right? So it's kind of challenging for me to work with all that local contractors who haven't understand what are the international standards, and there is a huge gaps about our expectations and their expectations. So sometimes we I have to give them like a template, and these are the things that you need to submit, and all that logistics about the safety documents and systems and everything. We have to taught them, and also when it comes to operation, right? A lot of local contractors here in Korea, it's their first time to do all that task at the marine operation, and facility-wise, we don't have like a fancy DP vessels here and there. There are some DP vessels, but with the commercial issues, we can't use that things, and they don't want to be. And also the owners of the DP vessels, they don't want to prepare all that HSE document just for 5 or 6 hours work. So that's the things that we have to come up with, like the kind of lack of safety combination of the marine operation. For example, when you have like a lighter recovery, yeah, and you have to go to the site, or you have to lift that lighter onto your barge, right? But you have the barge, which is size big enough, and you have tugboat, and you need to have like a crane, right? But since we don't have like a DV vessels right there with really good the lifting crane the function, we have like a land use cranes onto the barge, and we use that thing, right? And but as a SSC perspective, we have to make sure all that waves height and the weather, all that wind strong, all the things. But that is the facility that they have right now. But we have to proceed our projects moving forward. So that's the one of the big challenge that we face into. That was kind of 3 years ago, but I don't know if they still have like that combination for the floating lighter recovery or installation with that combination. Hopefully not, but that is one of the things. So in conclusion, in the development phase, all that activities related with site investigation is a lot smaller, size-wise compared to construction TNI phase, but people still exposed to hazards and risk and everything. So as a HSC professionals, from developers, we need to make sure they do their job in safe manner. So that's my words. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And really interesting to hear from the development phase into construction as well from Takamasa, right? It's the same threads that was mentioned earlier as well, in terms of the experience, right? So I hear new people, new equipment, and then also, we have these international standards, and why do we need to comply with that as well? And then we have the language as well, which is all very interesting challenges. Great.
Yeah.
So there was a question on the chat here actually from Jakob to Takamasa. What can European supervisors actually learn from the local workforce? So turning it around a little bit. Maybe it's to the both of you.
Yeah. First, maybe the characteristics of the marine environment here in Korea, I think is quite different. if you go to southwest, near the Gamundo, name of the island, I think that area is the most fastest a sea current is existing there, right? So if you have like a floating lighter or site investigation activities there, you have to take care of that, the current, very strong current, right? So when it comes to like we also have a lot of typhoons, right? So some of the developers, they are suffering the loss of their lighters, especially of the strong wind, the strong heavy wind. So from my experiences, we had experience to lost our lighters. Some area that I just mentioned, the current is very, very strong there, and just lighter was just gone, and but the anchor weight, which is connecting to the lighter, was still there on the water, right? So we have to find out the middle buoy, which is like a 10-meter depth from the surface of the water. We have to find out. So we have to try to find out the proper diving, companies, and you need to. When it comes to diving, you have lots of HSE things that you have to make sure, right? So I remember that I was actually canceling two other contractors of diving companies, and then finally I found a good one and went there. And you have like just about an hour operation time, because after an hour you have the current has become very, very strong. So we have to be on time, and everything has to be set, and we have to be adapted to the environment. I think that is one of the good examples. People from out there should understand what are the characteristics of our marine operation, marine environment.
Yeah, really, really, really good points. So marine environment, typhoon, local conditions.
Okay.
What about Takamasha? Yep.
Yeah. So honestly, I don't think from technical perspective there's not much thing to learn from local workers, because we basically use technology from Europe. But maybe European supervisors can learn local safe practice. For example, we point the things when we check something to make sure we do not forget the process or step. So maybe that can help understand the local safe practice. And but most of our European colleagues enjoyed working with our local workers. So we had some team building event. We have some drinking parties, especially before holiday. We have a strict AOD policy. So, but we had good interface between European workers and local workers during the project.
That's great. Thank you very much. And I can't remember what it's called. It came from the rail industry, isn't it? I think it's a really, really good idea, the pointing and checking exercise. And I also think all of this sort of stuff is extremely relatable. It's like we have rules. So I can speak from maybe representing Taiwan perspective. I think it's always how we can make things relatable, because we have all these rules, right, or employers' requirements where we have all these standards, and it's how do people understand it? So photos are good, so pointing and checking exercise is the same as doing a stop and check right before starting works, and people know it well. So thank you for sharing. Karen, you had your hand up for a minute there.
Yes, about the point and saying kind of system. We actually have someone from G also in the meeting with us. So I'm not trying to pressure anybody into sharing something, but like you said, it is a very interesting and very Japanese kind of way of working, but it probably will still work good within the APAC region. So
It's great.
And then we do have several
yeah.
more questions from Jakob and also from Soren in the chat box.
Yes, thank you. So we had one from Boomjong. It sounds like there's too much focus on paperwork. How can the focus be turned into innovation and development of new ways of handling equipment, such as LiDARs?
Yeah, if I understood well, let me just making sure. Can you just repeat the question again, please?
Says
Sure.
it sounds like there too much focus on paperwork. How can the focus be turned into innovation and development of new ways of handling equipment, such as LiDARs?
Yeah. Because of the document wise, I think it's it probably it has to be met with company policies and also local legislative requirements, right? So they have to have if, for example, like risk assessment and like a hazard identification and risk assessment, that is mandatory, right? Whenever you have like a business activities there, you should have it. And as a business owners, you have to make sure all the contractors or subcontractors even to do the actual work, they need to come up with the risk assessment, right? And the mitigation plan. So that's kind of paperwork. We don't want to like give them like hundreds of pieces of paperwork and you should come back. Without that, you cannot go on. Some of that. It doesn't look like that way. And when it comes to innovative and a more development phase of the floating LiDAR, I think most of the developers here in Korea, I think that the design of the LiDAR itself is very different from developers and developers. So as you have like a round and you have like a weight and you have like a 9-meter long of the LiDAR, and some of the LiDAR looks like a small vessels, and some of the LiDARs looks like a tube, something like that. So how you recover all that LiDAR, it should be different. There's connecting point when it comes to recovery onto the barge. The connecting point is different. The shackles connecting to the middle buoy is different. So it's kind of hectic, to come up with just one common kind of innovative methods to dealing with all that LiDAR maintenance. So that's one of the challenge. So I don't know if that is good answers or not, but that's what I felt.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think it sounds like, yes, obviously there's legal requirements and paperwork that you have to do, right? But there is always innovation that is being done to try and find the best solutions to the innovation and safe deployment of devices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Takamasa, I don't know if you have a comment to that as well. I presume that there has been LiDAR deployment and other activities as well.
Sorry. So the question is, focus on people.
I just wonder if you also have experience in terms of not just doing paperwork, but also do you have looking to how we can always improve the way we handle equipment and things like that, such as LiDARs in workshops?
Yes, so we had lots of hands-on training on site. For example, how we operate service lift. So we have this kind of hands-on training. Another example is tool tethering training. So to prevent dropped objects, we provided tool tethering training to the workers. They don't know how to use tools, so we explained the workers how to use them.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, I have another couple of questions here. So we have one from Soren. Do you think, this is to Boom Jung, do you think it would make a difference to make the risks more visible / understandable as opposed to compliance? Maybe through strengthening the regime around risk assessment, making it as operationally relevant as possible.
Maybe I can give you a good example of how I think it's Soren mentioning about, practical, right? Something that you can use in the workplace, right? Kind of thing. So, if I give you some of the, if you have like a lighter recovery cases, you have barge, you have crane. But think about, the lighter is just floating, right? So you have to close as much as possible your barge to the lighter. And since the size of the lighter is very small, people cannot jump on that lighter. Definitely not, right? So you need to have like a certain, we call it happy hook. Yeah, and that tool gives a lot of happy maybe, because there is some eye shackle onto the lighter. But since people cannot be on that lighter, you should have like a happy hook, which can help that all that lifting, the wires and lifting slings can be slide in the shackles, and then you can have like a preparation for the lift. So you need to have that tools, right? But of course, when it comes to that new tools and people who are, don't have a lot of experiences, recovery of the lighters and things like that, but we have to ask to the contractors come up with the step-by-step risk assessment. We call it JSA, right? So we have to make sure, give them like a sufficient time to prepare all that risk, because they are the actual workers and operators who do all that things, right? So they should know what are the risk is there, and we are not just making and give guide them. This is the risk when it comes to this step and that step, but they have to come up. So we try to emphasize to the contractors, you guys are the actual workers, and be practical about things. But when we review things, these it looks like a little bit risky, then we just come back to them and change a bit, and and considering all that safety standards as well. So I think that's the way we need to have like a more close communication to the contractors, and then and of course you have to have like a sufficient time to discuss all the things. So the risk assessment is just not just submitted once and review and done. Not like that. It's just like ping pong games, right? These are the things that you guys have to improve, and all the things. So that communication and time you spend is very, very important. Make them practical and make them safe on that actual work.
Yeah, great, thank you. And perhaps I can jump in and also to provide some information on this, because from an Ørsted perspective, we also always spend a lot of time working with our contractors to help the risks become more visible and understandable. And something that's good to share, we also have this thing called a ROC drill. It's a ROC, so it's a rehearsal of concept. And so we have toys, sometimes we have Lego, to really visualize on a desktop exercise, what we are actually going to do, right? So people can actually imagine, like you said, with your happy hook, this is how it's going to work, onshore, for people to really then see, and they can then visualize what could the risks be. and why we need to then have good health and safety processes in place.
Wow, that's great.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, right. What other questions have we got? We got loads of questions.
Another one to Boom June by David.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm here. So Boom June, about regulations. Do you think you could tell us about the Serious Accident and Punishment Act, the SAPA, that has been applied to workplaces with more than 50 employees? But from January 2024, it will also apply to workplaces with more than 5 employees and less than 50 employees. So that means, right, from 2024, all the owners of the coastal and offshore fishing boats must establish a very, very strict safety and health management system, according to SAPA. And what are your thoughts on this? What's the plan? How can we deal with all our contractors to effectively avoid any risk of the strict criminal punishment? You're on mute.
Yeah, as ACUS, how we translate the SAPA. Actually, the SAPA, the Serious Accident Punishment Act, was enacted last January 27th. It's been a year, and as we see, I think the purpose of the inaction of SAPA is to punish the business owners. So since we have, G+ members are all the developers and business owners of that projects, I think SAPA is more gives you a responsibility and the liability about the whole chain of the projects down to the contractors and subcontractors when it comes to safety. So as ACUS, what we are making sure is as a developer, exactly the SAPA said, business owners have to take care of the contractors and subcontractors works. So when it comes to selection of the contractor, right? You need to have like a certain evaluation process and procedures in place in your company. And if something happened, the labor officers and police officers, when they're in the investigation process, or even higher like prosecutor officers, they will ask you, what have you been done for making sure about safety when it comes to contractors and your business basically. So from the very first time, we need to making sure the best of the best contractors being selected from our evaluation processes. And once we select the contractors, we need to making sure all that the safety system of work. We give them like a guidelines of like a contractor HSE requirements or something like that, and they have to comply with all the things. So so basically, we have to review and monitoring responsibility as a developers. So this is how ACUS making sure as a developer, it's not accidents happening on site. So that's how we translate the Serious Accident Punishment Act. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, there is a question, and perhaps I could throw that to Takamasha. There's a question relating to safety training standards. It looks like OPITO, which is the oil and gas authority for training, will be mingling into the training for technicians as the equivalent for GWO, basic safety training. Do you have any thoughts on such extra training standards?
Yes. So in Japan, there's a new GWO training facilities started last year. So currently we have 5 facilities providing a GWO BSD But OPITO certified training is provided by only one training facility. Actually, same facility which provide GWBST. So I'm not sure in Japan, OPITO training will be, how can I say, equivalent training of the GWBST. But yeah, as wind turbine gets bigger and bigger, I guess the helicopter can be the one of the transportation method. So I think that helicopter evacuation training is also one of the necessary training in the future.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, thanks for that. Great. Okay. Are there any other questions from anyone? Sounds like for it. Okay. So, if there are no more questions, then I will close today's G Stakeholder Forum. Karen, can we move on to the next closing slide? Or
Yes, but
yes,
we do have Stefan just added in another question. So he was asking about the training for CRWE substations.
CRWE. You mean crew? CREW, crew on board of substations. I'm not sure. Is it in relation to? So it's not GWO basic safety training.
For emergency response.
Okay. Does any of you have a view on that?
Yeah, actually here in Korea, we have like a training provider, professional training provider accredited by GWO, down to Busan actually. So they have their facilities in Busan, and they have like a full pack facilities there. So you can have like all basic GWO training, like material handlings and working at height, and survival, how marine survival, and helicopter escapes and all that thing. So I don't know if they have like when as Stefan just mentioned about the training for crew transfer, right? I think I need to check with a training provider down to Busan. Do they have like a crew transfer kind of training specifically for that? I think if that is one of the elements of GWO, they should have it. That's my answer. Sorry not to be very clear answers, but that's what I know so far.
Great, thank you. I think if I can try and I try and explain that from a OSCE perspective as well. I think if the training is available and it's good, right now GWO, it works as an established platform for everybody in offshore wind. I think that's fine. I think it's that I think we'll have to wait and see. What does OPITO plan on doing? And as Takamasha mentioned, what is also available to us. So I think it's, I think it's a wait and see. So right now we do have fire team member training, and fire training under GWO. It works, and I think we would assess that to see if there is an additional requirement coming up. How does that fit? And for us, ultimately, it is to manage the risk on our wind farms, right? And whether that fits for us. Jakob?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, can you do that part too?
I just wanted to comment on the training there, because that's obviously one of the things that comes up again and again. One of the things that we are trying to, from a G+ side, to influence GWO is to open up their training register, the WINDA database that they have. Currently, you can only register GWO trainings in that. But if you could register other trainings, for example, the Hewitt, the helicopter underwater escape training, and other trainings, then that would make it easier for us as developers to have like one register for all the different trainings. And then you could either, as a single developer, as a company, you could make a filter that says, what do we accept as equivalent trainings? Or we could even agree on an industry-wide criteria of what trainings are equivalent. I think the question Stefan brings in is about substations, and they have typically been a little bit forgotten because we tend to focus on the wind turbine, or we focus on the vessels. On the vessels, there are clear requirements from the marine world, and on the wind turbines, then that's kind of part of the wind industry. But on the substations, it tends to be a little bit of a mix of rules and regulations coming in from oil and gas, because you have a similar type of platform, but with a completely different risk on it as in hydrocarbons. So the point I wanted to bring in was to open the WINDA register for other trainings, because that would make it more flexible, and that would make it more dynamic, and that would mean that we could sort of act quicker, and that companies could make their own standards in what they accept as equivalent. So just wanted to bring that in. That there's a GWO meeting in 2 weeks where we're actually bringing up this topic.
Super. Thank you for that, Jakob. And Stefan, thank you for, I understand the question a little bit more now, so from an Australian perspective and in terms of substations. So great.
If you guys allow me to, make a comment a little bit about the mindsets, as Kelly raised as a very, very first time. So here in Korea, since we have a lot of developers facing to their development phase with their offshore wind industries, I think a lot of local players and even are very like their mindset is definitely lack of competencies and all that things, but mindsets, when it comes to mindset, I think it takes time. So from our development perspective, I think we need to have more hands-on collaboration and communication with the stakeholders, right? And also during the last 3 years, when I was in the offshore wind industry here in Korea, I observed a lot of accidents happen, right, here and there, and some of them were very serious accidents, and some of them like near miss, yeah. But as I observed all that accident, all the things, the people's, if they realize, if certain, kind of things is happen and become like a serious accident, it has to be prevented. And also, since we're understanding the changing of the mindset and perception of the people's, it takes time. We need to spend more on collaboration of the contractors, and I think as a member of G+ here in Korea, I think we can be a kind of focal point to drive that mindset into the area that we want. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Okay. Great. So closing remarks. Yes. So look, I just want to have a really sincere, heartfelt thank you. Thank you to our panelists for your input and your thoughts and questions, and everybody else for your questions. So for me, I hope that this session has been really informative. We've given you information about G+, who we are. We are a global organization, and all the work that we're doing right now in APAC. We are here to work together to improve health and safety, to share best practice, I hope you found some interesting views and some thought-provoking discussions as well from around the table today. And then, yeah, I hope you can join us, get involved in G+, whether you're a developer, regulator, contractor, together, and only by doing it together can we make offshore wind in APAC a really, really good, nice, safe health and safety workplace for everybody. So thank you, and looking forward to working and discussing more with you all. Have a nice day.